makes the solution-focused work so different to most other ways of working with people and organizations is that the solution-focused work is based on resources. The first thing we ask for is, what does the system, what do the people already know? What are they good at? What do they enjoy doing? What are their resources? What are their talents? What are their possibilities? And this sort of loads them up with abilities instead of with disabilities, as it is usually the case when we analyze problems in the past. This is what we do not do in the solution-focused work. We ask about resources in the present, and we load up the person, the system, the group, the team, the family, whoever we work with their abilities. We ask them to remind themselves about the things they like to do, they're good at, and they enjoy doing. Because that's their potential, that's where they start off, right? And the only question is, how can we use these talents in a way to go on from there in a way that is useful to them and helps them to solve whatever they want to solve, or to establish a state that they want to have. So we start from the resources, and then the next question, of course, is, where do you want to go, right? Let's assume we are already there. What is different there than where you come from? And so we start building useful differences for the people we work with, and this in a state of energy, this in a state of well-feeling about the resources they have. And we don't ask about the resources they wish to have from outside, we ask about the ones they already do have. Well, if people are very, very deeply in trouble, or are very deeply upset, and they are deeply stuck in this state of the process where they really feel that their pain needs to be heard, they want to express their problems, of course this is something we need to respect to start, that this is the starting point where we are at, right? And whether you can see that there could be a solution or not depends on many factors. One of them is how you define a solution, right? Famous Austrian Ludwig Wittgenstein said, a solution is the disappearance of the problem. Sounds trivial, right? But actually it's not at all, because that means you have an almost infinite number of possibilities to solve things. As soon as you're rid of whatever builds the problem, and one thing can be a fact, one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it would be, what relation do I have to this concern? How do I relate myself to the situation, right? Let's take a simple example. If I have a boss that is difficult and it gives me trouble, the boss may stay the person that he is, but if the boss changes the job, my relation to the problem has changed. And even though the person may still be the same, my problem has changed, right? So a relation to the situation can also be a way of changing things. So, however we see ourselves related to a situation, what you always do have is a choice. And this is something we can work with. And another famous Austrian, Heinz von Förster, he differentiated between a problem and a limitation. A problem would be a state that is full of resources. If you have a problem, you have something you can change and manage. If you wouldn't have resources to change it, you would not have a problem. Then you would have an utopia, maybe a wish, maybe, I don't know, a fantasy. But a problem, in his definition, is something you can change. So you have resources. So you can act. A bit different is the situation of a limitation. A limitation is something where you cannot change some of the factors around you. You are not in the power of being able to change things because some things are given. Some limitations are given. And the classical example, the classical literature example is that a man sits in Steve Deschaze's little office for his therapy, and he is missing one arm because he had an accident. And the solution-focused method was more or less defined by Steve Deschaze and his wife Inzo Kim Berg in their work. And Steve would ask his client what he could do for him, what would help him, what he would wish for, what he would like to have. And he said, well, I want my arm back on. And Steve would look down on the ground and wait, not say anything, maybe shake the head a little bit. And after a while, the client would, wake up and say, oh, you mean something realistic? And Steve would say, yes, yes, yes. So, if part of our definition how we see a solution is that it should be realistic, that it should be looking forward, that it should start from where we're at, and that we cannot turn back time. This client has no chance to turn back time before his accident and have his arm back on, but what he can do is can start thinking about his resources. He still has a second arm. He is healthy, besides the story with his arm. He has 2 healthy feet. He has a head. He has interests. He has people around him that help him. He has talents. He has choices. He has possibilities, and so on and so on and so on. And if you base on these things, later on in the discussion they had, they were able to find out that this man likes to play tennis. And actually he has always liked to play tennis, and he always wanted to play more tennis, but he has sacrificed his time to his career. And tennis did not have much room in his life lately. And he was right-handed. He still had the right hand. He was missing the left hand. And he could play tennis with only one hand. So, whether if the story is true or not, it is a good example or a good metaphor for from what perspective you look at it makes a big difference. How you define a solution or a problem makes a big difference, right? And we cannot force people to see things differently. Of course, we have to pick them up where they are. And if they are deeply in the problem trance, to ask somebody to think about his or her resources and solutions would be too pushy, no doubt. But that has nothing to do with the method of solution-focused work. That has to do with empathy, understand where the person is, asking questions that the person can take. And step by step, slowly find the level of questions that can build useful differences for the person you work with, or the system, the organization you work with, or the family you work with, whoever it may be. And from there on, step by step, build differences that are useful, including gathering resources. Even the person in the worst situation prefers to hear a compliment, something the person is good in, something the person enjoys doing, than the problem. And from there on, you can start building further differences, like, let's assume we're in the state of a solution. What is different than today? And then you come back to the question, and all we're thinking about now, is it realistic? And then you can build up step by step useful differences in a realistic term. It puts people in a state of energy where they like doing and trying next steps. So it is really, to work with the solution-focused method is really a shortcut. It really boosts the time we need in order to move on, compared to methods that look in the past and analyze problems. If you do that, you may know the reasons why you are where you're at, but you have not moved from there. This is the answer to how to help people that think that they have no way out. What they always do is have options and choices. And the question is, how can we help these people finding these choices and options again? Honestly, after all these years, I have not experienced a limitation. Not by the method. One thing, of course, is method, and the other thing is how you use it, how you implement it, right? So, as I said before, if I would ask a person that is in pain, that, for example, just lost an important person, or that lost a major support in her life or in his life, or some situation in life has changed all of a sudden from one day to the other, and she or he is still deeply stuck in the experience of this problem and this pain, and feels as a victim. If I start asking right away, let's assume everything is solved, what is different than today, it would be too pushy, right? So that would be a misunderstanding of what this method offers us. But if we use the intuition we have in order to start asking questions, and they can be solution-focused questions, very useful solution-focused questions, step by step, that build the kind of differences that are useful to this person in the right time. Right? We cannot force somebody to work on something the person is not willing and ready to work at yet. But once the person is willing to talk, is willing to start thinking about opportunities, as soon as this moment is even given, or I can support to achieve this state, I've never ever experienced a limitation of the solution-focused work. It's always helpful. It's always a shortcut. It's always based on resources. Therefore, it's always based on something that people feel as helpful. And it's rather the other way around. It's rather that sometimes people can't believe how easy, how fun, how fast it can be possible to find solutions and new ways and new options. So if I know something like a limitation, is that sometimes I cannot offer to people that it is hard work, because they simply find solutions in an easy and fun way. If solutions may come easy, if work may be fun, if life may be easier, I don't know any limitations with this method.